In today's video, we're going to focus on how long this Bitcoin bull market could last. We'll be looking at the perspective I mentioned in the previous video, but also talking about some of the ways in which we could be potentially accelerating in this cycle. So we're going to be talking about that in a lot more detail. So subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoy content like this going forward, and let's dive right into it. But before we dive into it, a quick message from our sponsor. Our sponsor for today's episode is Bitunix, and they are a really great crypto exchange for you to consider for your daily crypto trading and investing. They are a no KYC, no VPN futures exchange, and their liquidity is on par with the top exchanges. Users can trade over 250 pairs with up to 125x leverage without restriction. And to celebrate our partnership, we're running a very special offer. From January 21st until February 21st, you can sign up using my link and deposit $50 and get $10 back, and share up to $10,000 worth of Trump tokens when you trade on Bitunix. Deposit reward will be distributed on every Monday and Thursday, and Trump trading rewards will be distributed after the campaign ends. The clock is ticking, the countdown timer is underway, and for more information, check out the link in the description down below. Thank you very much, Bitunix, for sponsoring this episode. So let's dive right into it. In the previous video, we spoke about this perspective where we have a mirroring in terms of 500 days before the halving, a bear market bottom occurring, and then 500 days after the halving, roughly speaking, a bull market top occurring. And that's been the case across cycles. And it's pretty compelling to see how a bull market top occurs roughly the same amount of time that we see a bear market bottom occur prior to the halving. 500 days on either side, showcasing to us that an entire cycle from bear market bottom to bull market top tends to last 1,000 days. So 1,000 days of fun, so to speak. But really important to talk about an alternative perspective. And this is a really interesting tweet from May 19th, 2024, where I spoke about the reaccumulation around old all-time high levels. And historically, we've seen price consolidate just below old all-time high levels. And that tends to be reaccumulation. We've seen that across time. And these reaccumulation periods have had a tendency of lasting very different amounts of time. So in 2013, we didn't really have much of a reaccumulation period. We just launched to the upside. Here we had lots of zigzagging, a few weeks of just consolidating. And here we had a very minimal reaccumulation period, but still proceeding upside. And here back in May of 2024, we know what happened because it lasted quite a substantial amount of time. It was 8 months or so, and as anticipated, we've seen upside evolve from that, while many people were calling for a bull market top end back then. And to be honest, people are also calling for a bull market top end right now. So that happens at every moment in the cycle. But you can just see that though these reaccumulation phases last a very differing amount of time, they do tend to proceed upside. And when we measure from old all-time highs to new all-time highs, this is once again a different perspective on the idea of diminishing rate of returns in parabolic phases of the cycle. You can see that very clearly, that diminishing rate of returns tend to occur after each parabolic upside phase, and we're probably going to see that happen to a certain extent also in this cycle, but that still means that we have a lot of upside left to enjoy. But when it comes to understanding a bull market peak and when that occurs from breaking old all-time highs to rallying to new all-time highs, in this cycle, that period, that price discovery phase, that parabolic upside phase lasted 273 days. In this case, in this 2017 period, that upside phase from old all-time highs to new all-time highs, and then bull market peaking there, and then bear market, that took 250 days. Whereas in 2021, that phase took a little bit longer of a time, 329 days. So what's interesting about that then is that it gives us a very specific range. If history repeats and we see a 250-day period from breaking old all-time highs to rallying to new all-time highs, that would mean that we could get a mid-July 2025 bull market peak. However, if we see things go the other way and we see an extended period, just like in 2021 where we were rallying for 329 days beyond old all-time highs before we finally peaked in the bull market top, then 329 days would get us to late September 2025. What's interesting about that is, of course, that it ties in with this scenario where we see a 550-day bull market top after the halving. That would get us into September or October 2025. So this is very much in alignment, while still appreciating and acknowledging the fact that we see varying degrees of acceleration beyond breaking into price discovery. We see these variations across cycles, and they give us this range. And what's interesting is that the accelerated cycle thesis means mid-July, and the extended cycle thesis, so to speak, still leaves us bang on with a traditional halving cycle peaking in late September, or October 2025. And what's interesting about that is that the Pi cycle crossover right now is scheduled for late September. So we're seeing a lot of confluence in the fact that late September is going to be the absolute maximum that we could see for this bull market top occurring. So it does take a bit of time. September 2025 is in alignment with this vertical here, based on the fact that we could be seeing a 329-day extension into new all-time highs price discovery lasting 300 days plus. And it also ties in with this theory whereby we peak 550 days after the halving. So lots of confluence there. Confluence also of the Pi cycle top indicator. But what we need to understand when it comes to the Pi cycle top indicator is that when we spoke about this indicator in the previous Pi cycle video, this is just a screenshot from my previous YouTube video, then we got that crossover scheduled for December. But what's interesting about that is that when we started to rally towards the upside most recently, from mid-90s or so to 104k right now, that suddenly changed the December crossover to a September crossover. And the more we rally, the more we're going to get a closer crossover, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us get so close of a crossover that would tease a mid-July 2025 crossover, because that tends to happen. The more Bitcoin rallies, the more that crossover in the Pi cycle top gets closer and closer into the future. So really important to kind of understand that these two levels, we've really explained in depth how we arrive at these levels in terms of when the bull market top ends. This is also a great way to think about as a range in time whereby the Pi cycle crossover could occur within. So between mid-July and late September 2025, that's when we'll probably see a Pi cycle crossover take place for ultimate confluence of a bull market peak occurring within this period of time. And that's quite interesting because those are the confluence moments that we're looking for. And obviously you can also try to make a case that, well, can we cross over in this bull market? Will there be a Pi cycle crossover like we've seen in the past here? And I think the answer to that question is that yes, the Pi cycle crossover has been a fantastic bull market peaking indicator that we have come to rely on, but I think it's really important to focus on periods of convergence, because when we're seeing moving averages this wide apart and maybe even diverging from one another, we don't really need to focus on that. But as we get closer to a bull market peak, or at least to a crossover, then that means we're close to a bull market peak. And in the previous cycle, we were actually not really crossing over. As you can see, we were aligning, tracking the moving averages perfectly for a month. So when we get to such a period where we're either tracking for an extended period of time and just aligning here without really technically crossing over, although crossing over, but over a period of time, it's a pretty complicated situation here. I think if we get tracking like this, or we get convergence that's just really close, then that's probably going to signal a crossover that's imminent, really. So, of course, you could wait and try and wait until the crossover takes place right over here. But to be on the safer side of things, it would be better to focus on partial profit taking and exiting the market once we've got this convergence, getting closer and closer and closer to the point that we're almost going to track and then cross over. Because I think at this period in time, you should be focusing on profit taking. And this is all about just not getting into a position where we're going to round trip our bags, because it's going to be a shame of all the effort that you put in for so long to round trip your bags in the end and not lock in any life-changing profit. And if you have life-changing profit even today, then change your life and take that profit. But really important to come up with strategies the closer we get to convergence, to really be on guard and start dollar cost averaging out of the market slowly but surely, especially as we get into the July and September period, right? Because that period here, we don't know exactly when we're going to top out, but history suggests that will probably be somewhere within here, with more confidence tilting towards September at the maximum. At most, we go to September and then peak then. This is a comfortable range here, and we'll probably peak around here and see that pi cycle crossover occur during that time. And it's during this period where it's really important to change your life if you can through life-changing profits. But of course, we'll be talking about this as the cycle progresses, because it's a really hot topic and we're gonna make the most of this bull run, because the way to make the most of this bull run is to realize those gains that you've generated, and that's what we're gonna be focusing here on the channel. So subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoy content like this going forward. I'm Rekt Capital, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak to you soon.